What is the production possibilities frontier? Well, before I go into this lesson, make sure you watched our lesson on opportunity cost because some of the things learned in that lesson will be beneficial and applicable to this concept, either in this lesson or the next lesson. So let's go and look at our curve here. We have good y on the y-axis and good x on the x-axis. So what does that mean? Well, this curve, and one thing before I go into what the curve means, the PPF, or production possibilities frontier, can actually be represented by a straight, linear, downward sloping line. But I didn't want to include that in this lesson because I didn't want any confusion between a PPF and a demand curve. So like I was saying, this curve represents our allocation of resources and the production of two goods, good Y and good X in this case. So if we produce all the way up here, we're producing our maximum amount of good Y, but we're producing none of good X. And over here, we're producing our maximum good X, but none of good Y. And all the points in between there are how many our production possibilities for good Y and good X, given our amount of resources. So we can actually plot a couple of different points or production points that our economy might be producing at. So our economy or our firm doesn't really matter. So let's just go through the order here and kind of go over what these mean. So A, we are producing inside of our production possibilities frontier or our production possibilities curve, and we can see that we're not using our maximum amount of resources. Well, if we are producing this much and we can obviously produce more, that means our production is inefficient. Now that makes sense because of what I just said, we're inefficiently using our resources in the production of these two goods. Next, we have B, and B is on our PPF. So we're using our max amount of resources, so we call that efficient production, because we can't get any more efficient than using all of what we have. And then I'll be asking you, maybe asking yourself, what is point C that is? Super efficient? Well, no, point C is actually unattainable because let's think about this for a second. If the PPF represents our maximum amount of production given our resources, does it make sense that we can produce outside? Not really. So we call this unattainable because we can't produce at that point. We don't have the resources to produce at point C. It is unattainable. Actually, it's not entirely unattainable unless we have something called economic growth or even through trade. But for this example and for this possibilities frontier, given there's no future economic growth or current economic growth expanding the curve outward, this point C is unattainable. Now, this ends our lesson on production possibilities frontiers. Next lesson, we're going to go over why this curve is bowed out, and it's actually really interesting. It plays a lot into what opportunity cost is and how we measure it and how we just kind of analyze it in the production of two goods. And then that opens up the possibilities to a lot of different subjects. So if that interests you, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay tuned for our next lesson. See you there.